you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
Welcome to another episode of Create Meaning in Medicine. And we are thrilled because we have a very special guest, someone we know and love, Dr. Tamberly Conway. And she is our forest therapy expert and nature dose advocate. So I'm going to go dive in right away, Tamberly. I love you. Tell us what that is and why is it important?
Thank you, Joanne. It's such an honor to be here on your podcast today with you and Aaron. And nature and forest therapy is a specific way to guide ourselves or to be guided into nature connection for mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And forest therapy is a global practice, now very well recognized and very well researched. And the way of moving into nature in that we slow down to the rhythm of nature, engaging in all of our senses, and just being able to focus and be in the present moment is very critical for our health and well-being. And as a relational forest therapy practice, which is the type of practice that I do and which I was trained, it is about connecting to yourself in a deeper way, connecting to others that may be in the circle with you through these practices, both in person and more virtually, like we are here today, and also with the natural world around us. So it leads to a higher level of stewardship and conservation of the earth that brings health and wellness to us each and every day.
Tamberly, I just want to comment that even as you were saying virtually, we can hear the birds in the background. We can see the beautiful background of the trees and the nature. And even though we're virtual, I can feel the healing, calming sense of nature. And anyway, it just brings a little bit of magic into this recording, which I so appreciate. And yet in medicine, for many women in medicine, time feels like the biggest barrier. And they might be like, how am I going to find any time for this? How would you recommend that women in medicine can realistically incorporate small doses in nature connection in their already packed schedules?
Yes, so as a nature dose advocate, I really came up with this title because I found myself in a variety of healthcare situations with both my grandmother, who I lost last year, and my father, who I lost this year. But I was in memory care settings, all types of like skilled nursing, assisted living. And I noticed that healthcare providers were actually, in addition to the residents there, in dire need of nature connection. And so I have advocated for nature connection in these settings to really shift the paradigm of elder care and of healthcare as a whole, because oftentimes healthcare providers, both in their clinical settings and then even at home, are not getting the amount of nature dose that they need each and every week. And we know now that the research shows we need 120 minutes of intentional nature connection each week. And so with individuals who are just, under a lot of stress and anxiety and experiencing burnout, it's critical that these healthcare professionals, that women in medicine, especially women who are connected to the land, to Mother Earth, get out in nature in even small doses. So finding, say, 10 minutes in between times of activity inside, getting outside, just walking outdoors, standing, if you can, getting under trees or sitting on a park bench, or a bench near your facility, and just coming into breath, closing your eyes if you feel comfortable and safe in a space, and then really focusing on the different sounds, the different smells that might be coming to you, the aromas in the air. We don't think about taste, but that is yet another one that we can do. The sense of touch, maybe even picking up leaves or going to touch the leaves of a plant in a flower, going in to really breathe in the aroma of that flower, noticing a pollinator rolling around in the pollen and drinking the nectar. Just noticing the tiny things really stimulates our neurological system and can actually bring us back into something we call attention restoration theory, which brings us back into being able to do that task that we were doing prior. And I know you all focus a lot on how to really to be thoughtful in the way that you are managing your time and the management of all of the paperwork that you have to do. So why not take some of that outside? Take your laptop, take your notebooks, and I know some of you do this when you get home because you take your work home with you. And so think about maybe moving that to your porch or a balcony or somewhere in your yard. This is not about going to a national park or a national forest or even a local park. You have nearby nature near you, whether it be at your office or whether it be at your home, and finding that safe, comfortable space where you feel connected. And try to do this every day if possible, and calculate your minutes so that you get your 120 minutes of nature dose or 2 hours in 1 week. So just finding little short time frames, maybe a walk after work that can help to kind of cool you down. And nature connection has been found to really help individuals boost creativity and productivity in the workplace. And so bringing this into the workplace is really helpful as well. Also bringing nature inside. So if you have a plant that you could bring into your break room or into your desk area, images of nature, fractal patterns in nature actually reboot the neurological system, bringing that sense of restoration. So any of these little tips could be very helpful just to get your nature dose either inside or outside. And doing it together is even better. So getting a pal to do that with you would be fun.
Tamberly, thank you for all that information. I always love listening to you. It's like part of you talking and the melody of your voice. And, usually I see you in Zoom backgrounds and you're frequently around nature. So, it's like the whole you. It's amazing. And thank you for being a role model for it because, right, like, I've known you for a couple of years and lived some of the ups and downs in the last years. Thank you for sharing the losses. And even then you're always so connected and you're always saying, right, like you're not missing out on what you need because you're present and serving others. So thank you for that. And I wanted to share behind the scenes when Erin and I met Tamberly some years ago. We were at this women's conference and we all joined this mastermind. And Tamberly and her beautiful self volunteered to guide us into an experience. And there we go. Erin and I raised our hands because that's what we do. And we joined, and to be honest, at the beginning, we were like, what's going on? Why are we hugging trees? Right? Like, we joke with Tamberly, so she knows. And it was so neat. It was so grounding. And, the exercise you gave us as a group and individually, and we were there for not that long of a time, and it was so refreshing. And I say that because it's always such a gift to be around you. But then for other people who might have been like a little skeptical too at the beginning, right? Like because we hear things like forest bathing and nature therapy, but what was it different, right? In saying like, just walk outside. Like give us that. You gave us some of that information, but what makes it different, really?
So in the practice of nature and forest therapy in which I was trained, it's truly a standard sequence of invitations. So it's very open and sensory. There's no right way or wrong way to do anything. And so it's like being guided by your heart, by your body. It's getting out of your head because we're always up in our head. And as Lauren always says, when you're in your head, you're dead. So you just get out of your head and into your body and move into spaces where you feel connected to nature, maybe sitting down and just being with a plant and watching, like I say, something moving in nature, the sense of motion, and just slowing down to the present moment. And then what I do is call people back into a circle. And I'm actually guiding a group of students from William and Mary College today in a health study with a remotely guided forest therapy practice. So we're doing this, and that I will invite them to go out onto an invitation, and it might be to connect to a being in nature. They might, their body might select a tree or a flower or the water or whatever it may be. And in that, they have their own experience. And then I call them back, usually with the sound of a dove or a coyote or an owl, and they come back into circle. And so this would be in a virtual circle. And when we were together, we came back into a physical circle and we shared. And so that's one of the aspects of this particular practice, is the sharing aspect. And that really opens our hearts and opens our connection to ourselves and one another. And another aspect of forest therapy is really just engaging with others and engaging with the natural world. It's not about naming trees, or it's not a naturalist's walk. It's not even a hike. What it is really slowing down to the rhythm of nature. And like right now, I'm receiving some raindrops falling on my head, and just the sense just feeling the rain on your skin, and just like touching your own hands and your own skin. We lead people into acknowledging themselves and the beauty and the essence and the uniqueness of ourselves, because oftentimes in this society, we feel lonely, we feel disconnected. And so this is a way that we can reconnect with ourselves and with others and the natural world around us. And this, I think, is just really something that we've lost as humans. We spend about 90% of our time indoors, whether it be in our homes, in our cars, or at our office. We're like a box. And so how is it that we can get out of these boxes and into nature, which we are nature? And so when we lose that uprootedness of nature connection, we often lose ourselves. And so when we reroute to nature, we often rediscover ourselves. And so this is just one of the ways, and thank you for acknowledging, this has been a really tough year in the loss of my loved ones. And every day I sought nature to help me heal. I found myself, I would go and sit under trees, and I've never really written before in the past in terms of poetically. And for some reason, it just flowed. And it was this way of mourning, but in a beautiful way, of writing about my daddy, of, writing about my grandmother, and, it was an opportunity to take a breath. And I made sure to nourish myself. Nature inside is also very important. So nourishing yourself with nature, and nourishing yourself inside and out. I'm all about the nature dose inside and out. And I think that's just critical, when we're facing stress and anxiety. This practice helps you to reduce cortisol levels. And when we sit under trees, like I'm sitting under trees here and is surrounded by trees in this healing forest, I'm being showered with phytoncides, which are volatile chemicals in the air that we don't see, but we're breathing them in and they're absorbing into our skin. And this was found by the Japanese in the early 80s. That's why they're calling it forest bathing. We're bathing in the atmosphere of the forest. And at the same time, this is reducing our cortisol levels, so reducing stress, anxiety, and also increasing natural killer cells. So this practice is actually being used around the world in cancer recovery, for instance. I mean, they'll bring people out into these forests, lay them out under conifers, primarily conifers like pines, cypress, cedar, and lying them under these trees, they're incorporating these phytoncides into their bodies, and so able to really combat, if people are on chemotherapy journeys, such as my mother is right now. I'm constantly trying to get her out here into this healing forest, and then also giving her the nature dose she needs internally each and every day. And so this has just really been a part of my own healing journey. And people have made note of that. And I know that it's been a part of how I've been able to maintain my groundedness and my rootedness and my sanity and in reality, with so much stresses, that come to us in the daily world, in our daily lives. And so this is one way, and it can be a daily way, a daily mechanism for reducing our stress and anxiety and reconnecting with what is real, with what can help us to rejuvenate and recuperate from the daily grind and the daily stresses.
Tamberly, I love all of this information, and especially how you're role modeling infusing nature, even when life has chaos and crisis. And oftentimes I find that we give up those things that we need most, especially when we need them most is when we're least likely to do it. And yet you are showing us, demonstrating that it's possible. And I also love that you talk about the research behind this, and you are a PhD doctor, correct? And I know you do the research, and you are so well connected with experts, not just in the US, but around the world. And I would love to hear more about the nature prescription and how this movement started.
Absolutely. I had the honor of working with the USDA Forest Service for 12 years. And at the beginning of my service with that agency, I began working with doctors who were writing prescriptions for nature. It was called Nature RX. And there were a number of nonprofit organizations. One was Park RX America. It's now called PRA, Nature Prescribed. Dr. Robert Czar was one of those at the forefront of this movement and still is. And there are, I want to say, almost 2,000 providers within his PRA network who are writing nature prescriptions. And so this is, for instance, at first it was parks. But then he began working with us at the Forest Service, and I was making, the comment that all parks are actually forests. They're urban forests. And so no matter where you are, even at your home, you have nature. Nearby nature, it's everywhere. Even indoors during COVID, the mandatory pause in the world, we were doing this indoors because nature's everywhere. And so what he began to do, and with his providers, they began prescribing nature, and maybe in someone's backyard that he prescribed this young lady who was experiencing, extreme anxiety and depression. He prescribed her to go lie in her hammock because that's one thing she loved to do. And so it's finding the things that you like to do in everyday life. It might be going down to the park and, playing with your kids at the playground, or it might be taking a walk with your friends in the neighborhood, or taking a break at lunch with your colleagues and just going out for a little jaunt and or just going to sit in a green space. And there are a lot of hospitals and clinics that host these outdoor spaces. Dr. Dan Porter, who is with the Lone Star Family Health Center, was another one of the first doctors that I ever met who was writing nature prescriptions. And that was through a program with the National Environmental Education Foundation. That's a nonprofit focused upon getting doctors and prescribers to prescribe nature. And he now has a Nature Explorer site at his office space, right outside of his office, where patients and their loved ones can, and even the healthcare providers during their breaks, can go outside and be in this really cool space that was developed by the Nature Explorer program. And these are just some ways that individuals, can become connected with an organization that, a lot of healthcare providers don't know the value of nature. And so what Robert Czar has worked on over the past several years is providing these experiences to healthcare providers so that they are more aware of the research and how it affects them personally. Because no one's going to prescribe nature unless they see the value and the power of nature connection. And Dr. Czar became a certified forest therapy guide with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, where I was trained. And so now he's actually guiding some of his colleagues he's now in Canada, and he works at a hospital there. And so many of the providers have taken the opportunity to experience forest therapy in this way. And, there's always just such a vibrant response to this. During the mandatory pause, we also offered these nature and forest therapy sessions virtually. And so people from around the world were coming to participate in these sessions, and that was also hosted by ParkRx America, now PRA. So this has been ongoing for quite some time. Also, I had the opportunity to visit South Korea on several occasions now and visit some of their national forest therapy centers, and they're working closely with healthcare professionals around their nation to bring this practice to bear. And one of the amazing things that we did recently in October of 2024, we went to the World Forum on Forest Therapy. So people from around the world talking about how they were bringing forest therapy into their communities. And so I talked about bringing this into the elder care realm, senior living, and also how it affects healthcare providers and their patients. I'm mentioning ParkRx America as well. And also there was a individual there called, with PARX, and that's out of Canada. And they have thousands of providers who are prescribing nature connection at their national parks and local parks as well. But we had the opportunity to visit some of these national forest therapy centers and participate in some of the programs that are designed from cradle, or actually prenatal to grave. They actually have burial forests in South Korea. And so I had the honor of working with the Stay True Creative Productions team. And this is a media productions team that, followed several of us around the nation and to these forest therapy centers, capturing the story of the power of this practice. They actually have a Forest Welfare Act in the country. And so people have the opportunity to visit these spaces and really dive deep into healing. They actually have barefoot walking trails, and there were elders there, like in their 80s and 90s, in these specifically designed programs for elders, and it was just fascinating. So I have actually brought that practice back with me. I ground, and again, there's a great deal of research behind grounding. Again, like taking off your shoes, putting your bare feet to the earth, and that can be seated like where I am now, and just grounding while. And actually, I'm doing that right now, just with my shoes off while I'm sitting outside. So it's habit stacking. So if you're going to go out and do something outside in nature, and you can take your shoes off, you're getting a kind of this electrical pulse, a rejuvenation of your electrical system. We are energy, and we are, just absorbing all of this energy from the earth. You can also sit on the ground or lie underneath a tree or on the ground and receive some of the same benefits, but keeping as much, you want to keep your bare skin on the ground as much as possible, because any type of fabric or material, can block that. And that's what the soles of our shoes do. They block that electrical current coming through us and grounding. So yeah, there's a great deal of research all around the world that backs the nature and forest therapy practices, and also the practice of writing nature prescriptions. So it's very exciting.
This is so cool. And Tamberly just mentioned it very briefly, but I need to really say out loud, she did a film. Like, this was a film, not just like a little video. And we're going to add the trailer to the show notes. And the trailer brought tears to my eyes. So you all have to see it. It's impressive. It's like, I'm so proud of you. It's so amazing. Thank you for that. That was so impressive. And, and again, another kind of behind the scenes of, right, like a little side note of, like, even though it's something that you've been doing for so long, how cool it was that both Aaron and I were witness to, like, those pivotal moments in life when we were in the Dominican Republic, and you kind of really called it into existence and said, I am going to go, and I'm going to go visit all these places. I'm going to do a film. I'm going to bring this here. And wow, like seeing you a little bit of less than a year really later, having you like really taking action to all those, not just dreams for you, but how important and the ripple effect that this creates. So I just want to honor you for that, because I know it's not a small thing. So a lot has happened in the last year. So thank you. And you mentioned the research recommendation of the 120 minutes, and you've given us so many good tools already, but because our audience, it's a lot of female physicians, and I can hear the little skepticism or that sounds amazing, but I don't have time. So two things, right? Like the importance of recommending this, which I love as a psychiatrist, is something that I've been telling my patients for a long time, and now I have all this research that you've shared with us. But then also, importantly, what are some tools that you can say to this doctor who might already be thinking, oh, I don't have time for that, or that's really not going to work? Like, what are some specific tools you can give them?
Well, first, I would say that this is critical. It's not just an extra. That the research is now showing that we need 120 minutes of nature connection each week. And you can couple that, again, habit stacking, because if we have some type of exercise regime that we do, we can habit stack. So instead of doing it at the gym, do it a couple of days in nature. And so you're still getting, some of those physical and mental health effects just by doing that piece that you would normally do in the natural world. Again, if you have a dog or a cat, you can bring it out on a leash, because they actually need nature as well. And many of us as guides do forest bathing with your dog. And so we'll host these events where people will bring their dogs and go out. And so any of those times that you're in nature, you can count those, right? You can check the box, but it is really important to check the box. This is no longer, it's not woo-woo anymore. A lot of people say, oh yeah, well that sounds nice, but it's no longer just nice. It's really critical for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being, because all of those are interconnected. When we are not feeling well emotionally, that affects us physically, and vice versa. And so there's enough research to now say that we need that 120-minute dose of nature. And whether that's 10 minutes, in the morning, and I recommend, have your workout clothes ready, or I have some old jeans. I just throw in my old jeans, throw on a pair of sneakers and get out first thing when I wake up. And instead of lying there ruminating about all the things, don't tell me you don't. Because yes, we do this. Instead of doing that, as soon as you start the rumination, go, nope, I'm getting up, I'm getting out of bed, and I'm going to go outside and just watch. It's just like bringing gratitude into your life. When you go outside and you notice the droplets of water on a leaf, you notice the pollinators waking up in the day, you notice the bird song, it just brings you right into gratitude. And so it erases the rumination. And there's something about it, it actually does that, because it's, again, the attention restoration. Like, you become attentive to the present moment. You become attentive to what's happening now, not what happened in the past, not what happens in the future, but just being there. And so I'm just here to say that this is no longer oh, maybe I should do that. It is, yes, it's critical that we do this, that we weave it into our daily lives and at least into our week. And if you can go out for an hour on the weekend, that's going to be a chunk of your nature dose. And researchers are saying that if you get more, that's fine. But if you get less, that is not good. It's not healthy at all for overall health and well-being. So I just say, get your 120 minutes. And there's a whole new, this whole perspective of now with longevity, we can live to be 120. And if you're focused on that and you're helping people, you're helping, your patients be as healthy and well as possible. And so if you weave it into your own day and your own week, you're going to start to see a shift. And that's when you can start, just like Joanne was saying, she's recommending it to her patients, because you do notice a difference. And people say all the time, oh yeah, whenever I go out in nature, like I can breathe and I feel different and I feel rejuvenated. And there is a reason why. And now science tells us that this is the case. It's no longer like, oh, I wonder. No, it's that clinical research shows. And there are plenty of studies out there, as researchers yourself, likely as doctors, nurses, healthcare practitioners, there's plenty of research that points to the need for you to do it too.
So many powerful takeaways, Tamberly. I've got so many notes here. And the biggest one I'm going to take away is that Joanne and I talk about non-negotiables. And it sounds like getting out in nature daily, if you can, certainly weekly, should become a non-negotiable, not just for us as healthcare providers, but also for our families and our patients. I'm going to add a few other summary points here. You addressed some of the barriers that we might face, including doing small little increments when that's all you can manage, and then adding more maybe on the weekend. And about intentionality, about not just getting out in nature, but paying attention to your energy. What are you drawn to? That we spend so much time in our heads. We are oftentimes, I think, disconnected from what's our heart telling us, what are our bodies telling us, and paying attention to that. And the power of slowing down, creating community, the vision of a circle coming back together and sharing, and that there's research out there stating the importance throughout our lifetimes. We weren't meant to be inside 90% of our days. Can we start shifting that back? And can that help erase some of the mental, physical, and emotional struggles that we're dealing with? And what I can see is from my witnessing you role modeling all these things, that it was clear to me how strong nature has been in your healing process and in allowing you to function very highly, even when things have been very difficult. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we would love to know where we can find you.
Well, I can be found on social media. Tamberly Conway is Facebook, and Dr. Tamberly Conway on Instagram, and also Conservation Conexions, and that's Conservation Conexions is spelled differently, Conextions. And there you'll also find Nurturing Nature Lifelong Living, which is the next phase in which Silent Healers, Nature's Cure, the film, as it will be a 45-minute documentary film. And the trailer shares a part of that beautiful story. And it has been quite the journey, and I have noticed so many openings, and am ready to partner and collaborate with folks who are interested in carrying all of this work forward as well. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to be with you all today and to share this message and to share from my heart, and to have nature be a part of that message, because we receive so many messages from the natural world. And when we slow down enough to listen, it really helps us move through some of our trials and tribulations, and it can help us to heal on a number of levels. So I'm grateful to you all. I'm grateful for you bringing me onto this program to support you all who are our superheroes in the world. I mean, people are caring for others, and it's important that you nurture yourselves, because you're nurturing others each and every day. And so that's how we can maintain a nurturing nature about ourselves, is nurturing ourselves in nature. And so that is my invitation to you to nurture yourselves in nature each and every day if you can. Let it be a challenge.
There you have it. Words of wisdom from Dr. Tamberly Conway. Thank you so much for sharing. If you haven't seen our YouTube video, you may want to see just how beautiful her background is. And we can hear the birds chirping and just showing us the beauty of nature. And don't forget to check the show notes for those great resources that Dr. Tamberly shared with us as well. And stay tuned because our next episode is coming right up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.